Alhamdulillahi wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi allazina istafa amma ba'd. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Qala rabbi awzi'ni an ashkura ni'mataka allati an'amta alayya wa ala walidayya wa an a'mala salihan tardahu wa aslih li fi zurriyyati inni tubtu ilayk wa inni minal muslimin. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. The purpose of this series is that all of us, inshallah, we can develop a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a strong relationship, a loving relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are several ways to strengthen our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in our times, one of the most effective and easiest way is to make abundant du'as to Allah ta'ala. To make this our habit, that from the smallest of the needs that we have to the greatest of our needs, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for every need that we have. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during the day, during the night. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala repeatedly, consistently. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for everything that we need. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for little, for large. That individual who keeps asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they always ask Allah and then ask no one but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and such a person becomes the beloved of Allah. So through du'as, a person can draw very close to Allah ta'ala. Dua is a way that we are strengthening our relationship with Allah. Many times we think about dua that I'm asking for something, and if I get that, then my dua is beneficial. And truly, one aspect of dua is that whatever we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah ta'ala will bless that, and then that will be beneficial for us. But there's also a second aspect of dua, that whenever we are making dua, that time which we spend in making dua, that time also counts as ibadat. Prophet ﷺ said that ad-dua mukhul ibadah. Dua is the essence of worship. Ad-dua huwal ibadah. Ad-dua is ibadah. It's an act of worship. Which means that because this is an act of worship, it's an act of ibadah, we will be getting reward for making dua, even if you're making dua for the dunya. Even if you're making dua for worldly things, still this will be counted as ibadah, and this will be a means through which we can strengthen our relationship with Allah ta'ala. So dua is not just our spare wheel, it's the steering wheel of our life. That whenever, even if everything is going well, we should try to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why Allah ta'ala says in Quran that ud'uni astajib lakum. There is a direct command that Allah ta'ala gives to all of us, that make dua to me and I will accept your duas. And on the flip side, that those who do not make dua, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is displeased with them. That why aren't they making dua to me? We are all needy of Allah ta'ala, and hence this is the best way we can express our need. We can present our humility before Allah ta'ala, and this is what Allah ta'ala loves. So this is the month of Ramadan, the month of dua, and we should try to Use this as an opportunity, and find moments during the day, find moments during the night where we are just talking to Allah Ta'ala in our heart. No one needs to know. You don't even need to make dua with your tongue. In your heart, you're making silent duas to Allah Ta'ala. You don't need to be on the janamas, on the musalla to make dua. You don't need to be in the masjid. You don't need to even be in a state of wudu. Silently, find occasions, find moments during the day when silently you're conversing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In your heart, you're just asking Allah Ta'ala that Allah, I'm asking you for this. Allah, I'm asking you for your love. Allah, I'm asking you to please forgive me. I'm asking you for things in the dunya. Find moments during the day, find moments during the night, and keep asking, because this asking is one of the best ways we have to strengthen our relationship with Allah Ta'ala. In this way, we can make this ta'alluq strong with Allah. And if we develop this, if we develop this habit, this is also the sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. You know, the sunnah dua before eating, the dua for drinking, the dua for using the restroom, for exiting the restroom, for leaving the house, for entering the house. This was the mizaj, the temperament of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the habit of Nabi Alayhi Salatu Wasallam. That after every after every few moments, there used to be one activity, some work for which there is a masnoon dua, which means that the Prophet ﷺ used to be thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout the day, all the time. Used to be conversing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, used to be making dua to Allah ta'ala, used to be asking for guidance. So the Prophet ﷺ had a very strong ta'alluq with Allah ta'ala, and that was exhibited by this dua. After every few minutes, a dua. Every few tasks, there was a dua. So this is also the sunnah way through which we can strengthen our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And now when we look at the du'as which are mentioned in the Quran, these are du'as which are very special because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself is teaching these du'as to us. And the fact that Allah ta'ala is teaching us means that Allah ta'ala wants us to ask using these words because he wants to accept it. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not wish to accept these du'as, then he wouldn't have taught us and asked us that make dua to me like this. The fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Quran is teaching us that make dua to me like this means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to accept those du'as. There is a irada of khair. Allah ta'ala's intention is to give to us, to bless us, to accept our du'as. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us these words. So these Quranic du'as are very, very special, that we should try to utilize, we should try to memorize, we should try to feel these du'as. And again, remember, we're not supposed to just do tilawat of du'as or recite them with our tongue. We're supposed to understand their meaning, and then from our heart, we should be asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our heart should be in the du'as, and we should make dua with sincerity, with humility, with certainty. And inshallah, if we make these du'as, then we'll see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept them. We'll see the acceptance with our own eyes. So now we look at the next dua. This is a dua which is mentioned in Surah Al-Ahqaf, which is Surah number 46. And this dua comes as a part of a longer ayah. So we have this ayat here, and the ayat, will do the ayat first, and then we'll inshallah come to the dua which is at the end. So the ayat begins, and this is a very important dua. Every part of this verse is very important and has a lot of lessons for us. So the verse begins, وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ إِحْسَانًا, that we have enjoined upon an individual that they should have good treatment towards their parents. They should be dutiful. They should be kind towards their parents. And this is not here only at one place, but throughout in the Quran, we see at several places that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned the importance of us being dutiful and kind and towards our parents and according them good treatment. In fact, just a few days ago, we were doing this other dua where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, Rabbir hamhuma kama rabbayani saghira. And there as well, we saw that first Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the command of Tawheed, that you will worship no one other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then after Tawheed, after ibadat of Allah, the first thing that Allah ta'ala mentions is that wabil walidaini ihsana, that we enjoin upon you good treatment towards your parents. So Iman, after Tawheed, the first responsibility, the first fariza, the first duty that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, teaching us here, is that we're supposed to have good treatment, be dutiful, be kind towards our parents. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ, we gave this as a wasiyat. Wasiya means that we're enjoining upon this. We're enjoining this upon you. We're commanding this, that you should be dutiful towards your parents. So a first, and then after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically mentions about the mother. He specifically singles out the mother, that hamalathu ummuhu kurha. That look, that your mother, she carried you, or she carried the child with hardship. She bore the child with hardship. And when the child was in the stomach, in the womb of the mother, so she bore that child, she carried the child with a lot of hardship. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He reminds us of that stage in our life when our mother was carrying us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to visualize. He wants us to remember, to reminding us. And sometimes it happens that as a man, we may not be able to appreciate this. But for the women, they know that the kind of hardship and difficulty it is when they are expecting a child. So that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Hamalatu ummuhu kurha. That the mother, she bore you, and she was in a lot of pain and difficulty and suffering during those months. Then, وَوَضَعَتْهُ kurha. And then she gave birth. And the act of giving birth was also very difficult. And again, those who have an idea about this, they know how difficult it is. How difficult it is to give birth. And there is so much hardship, so much pain that a mother has to go through. It's incredible pain. Perhaps a pain which men will never be able to experience or understand. That's the kind of pain that a woman has to go through when she gives birth to a child. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that as well. And next thing, وَحَمْلُهُ وَفِصَالُهُ ثَلَاثُونَ شَهْرًا. وَحَمْلُهُ, and then she carried him in her womb, which is gestation. وَفِصَالُهُ, and the gestation period. And then fisaluhu, which is the weaning period, the nursing period, is how much? Thalathuna shahra, it comes to 30 months. So gestation and weaning period together, Allah Ta'ala says is 30 months. Now this is the minimum time period. The minimum period is 30 months. That is what the Quran is mentioning. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this whole accounting. It's a whole calculation has been done here, that this is the minimum period for weaning plus gestation is 30 months. Now why? The reason is because the minimum period for gestation is 6 months. That normally a child who is alive, he is born or she is born, the minimum normally is 6 months. Normally, it's 9 months, gestation period is 9 months, but there are cases, there are instances where a child can be born uh, in as much as 6 months. A child can be alive, can come out. It's a premature delivery, but 6 months premature deliveries can happen, have happened. So this is the minimum period, which is the gestation period, which is 6 months. So the mother, she bears difficulty, for these 6 months of gestation. It's sometimes more than 6 months, it's 9 months, normally, which is 9 months. Sometimes it's even more than 9 months. In fact, in the books of medical science, it's mentioned that there is no upper limit for gestation. Sometimes a child can remain in the womb for several years. Wallahu alam, right? What those case studies are. But in fact, it's interesting because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not mention here the maximum limit of gestation, right? There is no maximum limit which is mentioned here. Only the minimum limit is mentioned, the minimum gestation period, which is 6 months. And that is also something which is mu'tabar in the Sharia. It's something which is regarded in the Sharia that the minimum gestation period is 6 months. And there's a lot of masail and legal rulings which are based upon this issue. That, for example, if someone gets married and then after 6 months they give, they have a child. So we'll say that this child belongs to the parents. And if the child, however, is born in less than 6 months, then we will say that the parent was someone else, the father would be someone else. So this masala, this legal ruling is derived from this ayah, underneath this ayah. So the gestation period minimum is 6 months. And then there are 2 years for which are the weaning period. The nursing period are 2 years. Because after 2 years, then the child is weaned off. It's difficult that before 2 years to wean off a child from milk. Normally, it takes about 2 years. So if we do the math here, the minimum gestation period is 6 months, and then the weaning period or the nursing period is 2 years. So in total, that would be 30 months. 6 months plus 24 months would be 30 months. So that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning here, that thalathuna shahra, the gestation plus weaning period will be 30 months. Now, why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioning this? Again, a reminder for us to realize, it's a realization for all of us, that go back and imagine, think about your own birth, that your mother, she gave you birth and then she bore hardship for you. She was in so much pain for all of these months, 30 months. And then only after that were we able to finally begin to eat something proper. We were able to eat solid, we were able to eat roti and other things, and we were able to get strength from those things. So it's a reminder that remember the ihsan, the favor that your mother did upon you. And that's why you should do husn suluk with your mother. You should be dutiful and kind towards your mother. You should have good treatment, accord good treatment towards your mother. Because remember what she did for you when you were young, that she bore so much pain and hardship and suffering for your sake. So she did ihsan and favor upon you. You should repay that ihsan by doing good towards her. And if you don't do good towards her, then that is being disloyal. Then that is being dishonorable. That is, you're not fulfilling your end, your side of the bargain. That she did so much favor upon you, and you are now disobeying her. You are causing further pain to her. You are causing further suffering to her. You are talking to her in a rude way. You should not do that. Don't break her heart. And we see here that the mother, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is initially, Allah ta'ala mentions the parents, wabil walidaini ihsana, mother, father, both, enjoining good treatment towards the parents. But after that, the special mention is of the mother. Because the mother, she bears that difficulty, the kind of difficulty which a father does not bear. The father does not have to undergo all that difficulty. The father, he just enjoys, right? He just gets the baby and he enjoys. But the mother, she undergoes a lot of difficulty. And for that reason, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions specifically the mother. And this is also the reason why in the Sharia, in the Deen of Islam, the mother, she has a lot of rights. She has rights more than the father. Once there was a Sahabi who came to the Prophet ﷺ and asked that, O Messenger of Allah, who has the greatest right over me? And the Prophet ﷺ said, that's your mother. Yani you should obey your mother. Her obedience is first. Then he asked again that after my mother, who's next? And again the Prophet ﷺ said, your mother. Be dutiful towards your mother. And then third time he asked the same question. And then again the Prophet ﷺ said, your mother. And the fourth time, when he asked the same question, then the Prophet ﷺ said that Summa Abuka, now your father. Now you should be dutiful towards your father. And he 3 times, the mother, she has her rights are 3 times more than the father. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not mention the mushakkat or the difficulty which a father has to go through. Right? The father's work is relatively, is much easier. Right? If there's if he just has to buy things from the market, has to earn and buy things from the market. That physical difficulty, that physical pain, that is only faced by the mother, not the father. The next thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions is that the mother and the father, your parents, who raised you up, who brought you up, did your upbringing, and they have now brought you up in this state where now you have become mature. You are a young man, and then even beyond youth, you are now mature. Hatta iza balaga ashudduhu. Hatta iza balaga ashuddahu, that the child, he grows, he continues to develop and grow until he reaches maturity. Ashuddahu, until he reaches maturity. Wa balagha arba'ina sana, and then eventually he reaches the age of 40. So this is a whole life cycle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning, that a child, he is being brought up by his parents, and now the child is growing and now reaches the youth, and then beyond youth attains maturity, and finally has attained, has reached 40 years of his life. So when he reaches this age of 40, that is when he makes this following dua, which is coming. Now in certain riwayat, it is mentioned that this verse is referring to one companion of the Prophet Sallallahu Sayyidina Siddiq Akbar radiyallahu ta'ala an. Sayyidina Siddiq Akbar radiyallahu ta'ala an, he was one of those companions, one of those Sahaba Ikram who were the first to bring Iman on the Prophet Sallallahu. In fact, was the first to bring Iman on the Prophet Sallallahu. And similarly, his parents also brought Iman very quickly, along with Sayyidina Siddiq Akbar radiyallahu ta'ala an. And the way this happened is that when Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala an, he was 40 years old, he brought Iman. And the age difference between the Prophet ﷺ and Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala an wasn't that much. Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala an was a few months older than the Prophet ﷺ. So we know that the Prophet ﷺ was manifested with the Nabuwah, manifested his Nabuwwat at the age of 40. And this was also the time when Sayyidina Siddiq Akbar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he was also around 40 years old. So that is why some Mufassirin, they say that this is referring to wa balagha arba'ina sana, that when he reached 40, this is an ishara or indicating Sayyidina Siddiq Akbar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. But anyway, the name is not mentioned. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't mentioned the name of this person. And it's general that when this child, he grows, and the mother and the father, they raise him up, and they bear hardship and difficulty in raising him up. And finally, the child, he attains the age of 40. Now, why is this age of 40 mentioned? Because by the age of 40, a person has undergone several stages of his life already, has completed the big stages of his life. For example, when he was young, he was dependent on his mother, on his father. When he attained adolescence, became baligh, bulughat, at the age of 14 or 15, so still he is dependent on his parents, the parents to fulfill his needs. And this continues, and his dependence and his relationship with his parents and his need for his parents, it continues all throughout the 20s, the 30s. And then when he reaches 40, now normally that is a time when a person himself has a family. He himself is now married, he has a wife to support, he has children of his own. So because of his own family, his attention is now diverted away from his parents towards his own immediate family. And he doesn't feel that same need that he had for his parents when he was young, when he was in his teens or when he was in his 20s. That was a time when he was always needy of his parents. Parents would be supporting him, he would be supporting his parents, thinking about his parents, and even sometimes even contributing and helping his parents. But now when he reaches this age of 40, now he has his own family to feed. He has his own family to take care of, his wife, his children. So for that reason, his attention is now diverted away from his parents. And plus, he is also not so much dependent on his parents. So this is the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning age 40 and then praising that person, praising that individual who even when they reach 40, they continue to remember their parents. Even when they're no longer dependent upon their parents, still they continue to make dua for their parents. They continue to be dutiful and kind and gracious towards their parents. They continue to have a good treatment of their parents. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises that individual. This dua is of that individual who is being praised by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's easy for a person to be kind towards your parents when you are young, because that's a time when you need them and they need you. You need them more than they need you. And it's easy, right? Because you know that I'm being supported by them. But when you reach this stage of your life where you don't need them, now it's a bit difficult. It's difficult to be good towards them. But this is such a person which is being praised by Allah Ta'ala, that even when now he doesn't need his parents too much, still he continues to make dua for them. And what is the dua that he makes? Rabbi awzi'ni an ashkura ni'mataka allati an'amta alayya wa ala walidayya wa an a'mala salihan tardahu wa aslih li fi zurriyati inni tubtu ilayk wa inni minal muslimin. Beautiful dua. Now, this 40 years has been specifically mentioned because also at this time, one's parents, they are in their old age. And and again, we did this before as well, that when the parents, they reach old age, then they require assistance from their children. They require some help. They require some support. And this is also a time when you have old parents. They might say things which you don't like. They might make requests to you, repeated requests to you, and you won't like that. They have their own way of thinking, which may not align with your way of thinking. They may have temper issues because of their old age. They may have anger issues because of their old age. They might get easily irritated, easily provoked. They might have health issues. And all of these things makes it difficult to continue having good treatment, to continue being kind towards them. to continue being dutiful towards them. Normally what happens is that children, they start becoming agitated towards their parents. They put a distance between them and their parents. They uh, they ignore their parents. They leave their parents. So that's why even before before a few sessions before we did this in Surah Bani Israel, Allah Ta'ala mentions that imma يبلغن عندك الكبر أحدهما أو كلاهما فلا تقل لهما أف. That if one of your parents or both of your parents, when they reach old age, so you should not even say uff to them. ولا تنهرهما, do not repel them. وقل لهما قولا كريما, and speak to them a noble word. Speak to them graciously, respect them, do izzat of them, honor them. وَاخْفِضْ لَهُمَا جَنَاحَ الذُّلِّ مِنَ الرَّحْمَةِ, and humble yourself before them. Humiliate yourself before them. Extend your wings of rahmah, extend your wings of mercy before them. And make dua for them. رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا. That, oh my Rabb, have rahmat upon them the way they brought me up when I was young. So old age is mentioned, and several places we find this. And again, this is a reminder, because when a person is in their old age, parents are in old age, then they will have issues. Their memory might fail them, their health issues, and having and being kind towards them at this stage of their life is difficult. But this is a test, and this is a very big test that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to undertake. And that's why this 40 years is mentioned here, that whoever reaches 40, so the praiseworthy servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are those who continue to do ihsan with their parents, continue to have good treatment, enjoying good treatment towards their parents, continue to be dutiful towards their parents. And what do they say? They say the following dua: Rabbi awzi'ni an ashkura ni'mataka allati an'amta alayya wa ala walidayya. Now, what does this mean? That, oh my Rabb, Rabbi, oh my Rabb, oh my Lord, oh my Rabb. And Rabb means that being who brought us up, who is our nourisher, nurturer. Awzi'ni, grant me this desire. Awzi'ni, grant me this desire. This word enable me doesn't capture it. Awzi'ni means to have a shock, to have a desire, to have a talab, to have a passion for something. Allah, make me have this desire. Grant me inclination in my heart, a longing, create a longing in my heart, create a yearning in my heart. For what? Create a yearning and a longing and a desire, a raghbat, a shock in my heart. For what? Anishkurali. Anishkurali. Anishkura ni'mataka allati. That I be grateful. Anishkur ni'mataka allati. That I am grateful for the blessings that you have bestowed alayya, upon me, wa ala walidayya, and the blessings that you have given to my parents. So, Ya Allah, grant me this shock, this yearning, place this yearning and longing and desire in my heart to be grateful for all your blessings that you have blessed me and that you have blessed my parents with. So we are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tawfiq to do shukr. And not just tawfiq, we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put a desire in our hearts to do shukr, a talab and a yearning and a longing in our hearts to do shukr, to do shukr. To do shukr for what? to do shukr for all the blessings that Allah Ta'ala first and foremost has blessed me with. Alayya wa ala walidayya. And secondly, for all the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to my parents as well. So the number one thing we learn in this dua is that we should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah make us amongst the shakirin. Make us among those who are grateful. Grateful for the innumerable blessings that we have and that our parents have. Our parents having a blessing is also a blessing for us because we are linked and related to our parents. If our parents are blessed, means that we are also blessed. But if our parents are in pain, in difficulty, then that will have an impact on us. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given comfort and blessings and favors to us and to our parents, this is double reason for us doing shukr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is nurun ala nur. And we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not only to be grateful, but we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put the desire of being grateful. There are two different things. Allah put this shauq and raghbat and yearning in my heart to be grateful to you, to be grateful for all the blessings that you have given us. And similarly, next thing is وَأَنْ أَعْمَلَ صَالِحًا تَرْضَاهُ. And also give me this shauq, give me this desire and inclination and yearning for doing good deeds, righteous deeds, pious deeds, which are pleasing to you. So we are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala this, that Allah ta'ala blesses us with the desire to do good deeds which are pleasing to Him. The yearning to do good deeds which are pleasing to Him. So you're not just asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah make me do good deeds or give me the tawfiq to do good deeds or enable me to do good deeds. We're asking Allah ta'ala to grant us the yearning to do good deeds. So this is the depth in this dua, that we make, so that we do good deeds out of a sense of, not some sense of obligation or a duty or some burden that we have to do or we must do, like a robot who's being told to do something and is just doing it without any emotion. No, we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put the shauq of good deeds in our heart, to put the desire, the longing and yearning, the love of good deeds in our heart. Grant us the love so that when we do good deeds, we do it lovingly, we do it devotedly, we do it longingly, we do it happily. We don't view it as a burden. Rather, we view it as a joy, as a pleasure. We view it as a delight for us. This is the difference between us and early Muslims. That the early Muslims, they used to pray their salah, which is one amal saleh, one righteous deed. They used to pray their salah. This salah was the best moments of their life. Imagine if there is a person whom you love in this world, and then when you will wake up in the morning, you will be looking forward to that meeting with your beloved. You will be looking forward to that meeting. When will that time come? You'll be thinking about that meeting with your beloved. Then when you have that meeting, when you're in that meeting, you are relishing every moment of that conversation, every word. And when that conversation, that meeting ends, you are still thinking about that meeting. And just thinking about that meeting again gives you joy and happiness. You're relishing every memory that you had, every memory of that meeting. So in a similar way, salah used to be a meeting. It's a conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the early Muslims, they looked at salah like that. It was the best moments of their day, the moments that they would be looking forward to. That when will the time come for us to be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to talk to Allah ta'ala. They would be looking with anticipation, waiting in anticipation for that meeting with Allah. They would be relishing every second of that meeting, every second of salah. And when that salah will be over, they will again be lost in memories about that salah and waiting that when will the time come for us to go back to salah. This is what we are asking for in this dua. That, Ya Allah, grant us that love for doing good deeds. And taradahu, love for doing good deeds, those good deeds which are pleasing to you. This one word is also really important and very deep. Many times a person might do good deeds, but those good deeds are not according to the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, you're fasting on the day of Eid. You're fasting is a good deed, but you're not supposed to fast on the day of Eid. That's against the pleasure of Allah ta'ala. Sometimes a person might make a mistake here that they're doing good deeds, but that good deed is not according to the pleasure of Allah, according to the rada of Allah. So what we should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for is that grant us the love for doing good deeds which are pleasurable to you. Good deeds which are done according to your pleasure. Because if we are doing good deeds in which our own way, we are doing good deeds in our own way, we are doing good deeds which are not according to the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then those good deeds are a waste. They would get us nothing. That is why our Mashaykh, they say that the deen of Islam is not simply about fulfilling your love. It's not simply about fulfilling your desire. That, well, I have a desire for Salah, I'm going to pray Salah. No, you have to look that what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want from me at this time? That sometimes you might pray, but you might end up violating, you might end up wasting the rights of other people. Your mother is calling you when you're just praying nafil salah. Your mother, she needs some khidmah and you're praying nafil. So you're violating the rights of your mother. So that salah that you're praying out of your love, that salah that you're praying out of your desire, you're praying that, but you're also sacrificing the haqq of your mother, the right of your mother. Deen is not about simply following and fulfilling the love that we have or the desire that we have. It's about ittiba, it's about following what Allah Ta'ala wants at that particular time. It's about the rada of Allah, that Allah, I want to know which deeds are pleasing to you at this time for me. Is salah pleasing to you at this time? Or is obeying my mother pleasing to you at this time? Which is more pleasing to you? Allah, that's what I want to do. That is what the deen of Islam is. To search out the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To search out what is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at a particular time. And then do that, follow that, to do ittiba of that. Many times it happens that students, even in a dini context, they go and they want to learn ilm deen. So they set out of their house and they're going to the madrasa, and then they become an alim, and then they want to go further and want to become a mufti. And they're engaged in all of that higher advanced study, ifta studies. But what's happening is that they're violating the rights of their parents. The parents back home, they need him. And they're no longer available. The child is no longer available for his parents. So, deen is not the name of fulfilling your desire. Deen is the name of searching and identifying the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then fulfilling and doing ittiba of the pleasure of Allah ta'ala. That whatever the occasion demands, whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from you at that time, whatever Allah ta'ala wants from you at that time, that is to fulfill that. This is deen. And that is why we see here that this is the dua that they're asking for. This person is asking that وَأَنْ عَمَلَ صَالِحًا تَرَضَاهُ. Allah, grant me the love, the desire to do righteous deeds which are pleasing to you, according to your pleasure, not my own pleasure. This is the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to come to Allah ta'ala on His terms. The mistake that we make is that we try to come to Allah ta'ala on our terms. That Allah ta'ala, I love you. Allah ta'ala says, if you love me, yuhbibkum fattabi'uni, then do ittiba of the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah ta'ala is showing us that you cannot come to Allah ta'ala on your own. If you claim to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah ta'ala redirects you. Allah ta'ala says, fattabi'uni, that do ittiba, do follow the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, And if you do that, if you bring to me the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, then yuhbibkumullah, then I will also love you. I will accept your claim to be my lover, and I will make you my beloved. So we have to come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on Allah Ta'ala's own terms. So we have to look that at this time in my life, at this occasion, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want from me? If azan is happening and the muazzin is saying hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah, at that time I should pause everything and respond to that azan. That is what Allah wants from me. That is what is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If I am at home and my people at home, my family members, they require some assistance from me, at that time, providing them that assistance, that is what is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Helping my family members is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Aisha radiallahu ta'ala she mentioned that when the Prophet ﷺ would come home, so someone asked that how would the Prophet ﷺ be when he would come inside the house? And she said that when the Prophet ﷺ is with us in the home, kana yakunu fi mihnati ahlihi, that the Prophet ﷺ would help us in the household chores. He would be with us, supporting, helping, assisting us in doing household chores. This is ittiba. That when you're in the house with your family members, then the pleasure of Allah Ta'ala lies that you help them, you assist them. But she also mentions that فَإِذَا نُودِيَ بِالصَّلَاةِ أَخْرَجَ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ. But the moment the muazzin used to call out the azan, then the Prophet ﷺ would leave everything and he would make preparation for salah. And in the riwayat narration, it comes that he would leave everything in such a way as if he wouldn't even recognize us. فَكَأَنَّهُ لَمْ يَعْرِفَنَا, as if he didn't even recognize us. And once she said that the Prophet ﷺ was with us, and then when the azan started, the Prophet ﷺ became as if he doesn't even recognize us. So I asked the Messenger of Allah ﷺ that, Ya Rasulullah, do you recognize me? And the Prophet ﷺ said that, Man anti, who are you? And I said, Ana Aisha. And the Prophet ﷺ said that, Man Aisha, who's Aisha? And I said that Aisha binti Abu Bakr. And the Prophet ﷺ said that, Man Abu Bakr, who's Abu Bakr? And she says that that's the time when I realized that the Prophet ﷺ wouldn't recognize anyone. So this was the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that in the house, one moment helping, doing household chores, helping family members. But then the moment azan, time for salah, then the Prophet ﷺ would leave everything and make preparation for salah. This is the name of deen. That you look at the moment that what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want from me at this time? And you follow that. This is ittiba. There might be occasions, times in your life when parents have a right over you, when parents are demanding some khidmat from you. So at that time, when parents need you, deen is that you fulfill the needs of your parents. There might be times during the day when your wife needs you, your spouse needs you. So then the rada, the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lies in you giving time to your spouse, fulfilling the rights of your spouse. There would be times during the day when your children need you. Then the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lies in you fulfilling the rights of your children, you being with them, taking care of them, doing tarbiyat of them. And there will be times when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself will have a right over you, salah. And then that is when you should give the haqq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the reason why we are being taught here, that even the dua that you make, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, Ya Allah, grant me that desire, that longing, that yearning to do righteous deeds which are pleasing to you. Not just only righteous deeds which are acceptable to you. Many times it happens that a person does a small deed, a small good deed, but Allah Ta'ala loves it. Allah Ta'ala accepts it. It earns the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing is small then. In one hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, La tahkiranna min al-ma'rufi shay'a. That among the good deeds, do not count any good deed as small. Do not count any good deed as small, as a trivial, as insignificant. Because if that good deed which you're thinking is small, if that earns the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that becomes extremely weighty on the day of Qiyamah. All of us, we might be familiar, I think most of us would be familiar with that story about Zania, a woman who used to commit zina, but she gave water to a thirsty dog. And that deed, that small amal, that small good deed of drinking water to a thirsty dog, that was sufficient to for her to receive this glance of Allah Ta'ala's mercy. She got the glance, she got that gaze of Allah Ta'ala's mercy, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave her all her sins of her life. Forgave her for all the sins, gave her the tawfiq to make tawbah, and she went into Jannat because of that good deed. Because of the rahmat of Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala accepted that good deed. That good deed was pleasing, became pleasing in the sight of Allah Ta'ala. So sometimes it's not about how big the deed is, or how much money that you're spending, or how many rakat that you're praying. Right? It's not about the magnitude of the amal. It's about the ikhlas that you have, and it's about ittiba. Now, what are you searching for through that good deed? Are you doing it just because you want to do it? Or are you doing it because you want to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the pleasure of Allah ta'ala lies in doing that good deed? You're seeking the pleasure of Allah ta'ala. And if you're seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that is what is pleasing to Allah ta'ala as well. That is what is acceptable in the sight of Allah. So, a'mala salihan taradahu. And وَأَصْلِحْ لِي فِي ذُرِّيَّتِي. وَأَصْلِحْ لِي فِي ذُرِّيَّتِي. And, O Allah, O my Rabb, put righteousness, put salah, put righteousness, piety for me in my offspring, in my children. Yani make my children salih, make my children pious and righteous. So this is such a beautiful dua that on one side we have the rights of our parents. That be good to your parents, be good towards your parents, be dutiful and kind towards your parents, and be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the blessings that Allah has bestowed upon your parents. And then on the other side, there is attention towards our children. That the children should also be brought up in a proper way, lest they become bad, or lest they become deviant, or lest they, na'uzubillah, go on the wrong track. No, be attentive towards your children as well. Be attentive towards your parents, be attentive towards your children as well. Make dua in which you include both of them, your parents as well as children. وَأَصْلِحْ لِي فِي ذُرِّيَّتِي. That, O Allah, grant piety for my children. Grant piety for my sake in my children. So we understand that a person's responsibility, our responsibility, is not just limited to my own being. That I just rectify my own self, that I become pious, I become righteous. It's not just limited to my being alone. It's not just enough that I become pious and I become a righteous person. Rather, we have another responsibility, that my children should also become pious. And that's why we're making dua for them. وَأَصْلِحْ لِي فِي ذُرِّيَّتِي. Allah, make my children righteous and pious as well. This is also my responsibility. This is necessary for me. And there is another very beautiful point about this phrase, this word fi. We are saying وَأَصْلِحْ لِي فِي ذُرِّيَّتِي, not وَأَصْلِحْ لِي ذُرِّيَّتِي. What's the difference? If I say أَصْلِحْ لِي ذُرِّيَّتِي without the fi, it simply means that Allah, make my children righteous. Right? Make righteous for me my children. Make righteous for me my children. But when you have this word fi means that Allah, put this righteousness for me in my children. What's the meaning? What's the difference? that this righteousness should be poured inside my children, inside them. Fi literally means in. So not just make them righteous, but Allah put righteousness within them, at their very core, inside of them, in their core, in their being, in their essence. Let righteousness just seep inside of them. Let piety just go within them, deep within them. Love deep within them, make them pious. And one thing is that, the children, they become pious on the outside, right? They're righteous outside in their behavior, in their clothing, in their demeanor, in their akhlaq, and they're doing good as well, mashallah, right? And sometimes they're doing good, they're acting righteously because they don't want to displease their parents. They're fearful of their parents. Their righteousness hasn't seeped inside of them. They're not acting righteously because they want to act righteously. Rather, they're acting righteously because they're scared about the parents. That what will my parents say if I act in an impious way? If I don't do that, if I don't pray salah, my parents will scold me. So the righteousness hasn't seeped inside yet. So in this dua, Allah Ta'ala is saying, no, make dua that Allah, let this piety and righteousness go within them, in their heart, in their mind, inside of them, in their blood, in their veins, in let it seep inside, right? Let it flow within them. Fi zurriyati. And the word zurriyati is also very important. Zurriyati doesn't just mean my immediate children, my son or my daughter. It means my descendant, my offsprings, my children, the children of my children, the children of my children of my children, all the generations, offsprings to come, ila yawmiddin, till the very end. Allah, my offsprings. Allah put this righteousness, put this piety within my offspring. Allahu Akbar. So beautiful, so beautiful. And again, like we said before, that according to a lot of mufassirin, this ayat again is referring to Sayyidina Siddiq Akbar radiyallahu ta'ala an, that he made this dua when he brought Iman at the age of 40. So what is one of the first duas that he is making? That, oh Allah, give me tawfiq to do shukr. Right? So again, we understand that after accepting Iman, Sayyidina Siddiq Akbar radiyallahu ta'ala an, he accepted Iman. Next dua that he is asking for is, Allah, make me a person of shukr. Shukr for the ni'matin that you have given me. So after Iman, if a person wants to save himself from the trappings of nafs and shaitan, they want to save themselves from the wasawis of nafs and shaitan, one of the most effective ways to do that is to do shukr of the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anishkur ni'mataka allati alayya wa ala walidayya. It is to do shukr, to be grateful to Allah Ta'ala for the blessings that He has given us. And after shukr, the next thing that he is asking for is piety, righteousness for himself, and righteousness to be placed inside his offsprings, in his children. And we know that Sayyidina Siddiq Akbar radiyallahu ta'ala an, this was a distinguishing feature about him, that 4 generations of him were Sahabi. 4 generations of Sayyidina Siddiq Akbar radiyallahu ta'ala an, they were blessed with this rank of Sahabiyat, which is the greatest rank any person can get after a Nabi. The father of Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala, he was a Sahabi Rasul, brought Iman. Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala himself brought Iman, Sahabi. His son, Hazrat Abdul Rahman bin Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, he also brought Iman. He was also a Sahabi. And then Hazrat Abdul Rahman radiyallahu ta'ala, his son, whose name was, I think, Abu Atiq radiyallahu ta'ala an, he brought Iman and he was also a Sahabi. 4 generations, all Sahabi. Allahu Akbar. This is called that piety being placed inside the offspring. It seeps inside, flows inside. That goodness, that piety, that righteousness, it goes within and then flows within the generations to come. Aslih li fi zurriyati. Every word is so beautiful. Aslih li fi zurriyati. So we learned that it's not just sufficient that we fix our own self. We also need to have this fikr, this concern for our children. And we should make dua for them, that Allah place this righteousness within my offspring. And we also mentioned this before, that the dua that parents they make for their children, it's makbul indallah. It's accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Guaranteed acceptance. Guaranteed acceptance. It's one of those three duas which are not rejected by Allah ta'ala. The dua that a parent makes for his child. And the reason is because it's a dua which is coming with sincerity from the heart. And that's why the parents, they should have a habit for making duas for their children. And another point to remember about this word, aslih li fi dhurriyati, the word aslih can be translated in two different ways. One is that Allah grant them piety, grant them righteousness. That's one meaning. And a second meaning, which is also there in these words, is that grant them salahiyat, grant them capability, ability, merit, strength. And you can make intention for both meanings while you make this dua. That Allah grant them piety, make them pious and righteous, and also place within them these capabilities, place within them these meritorious qualities, which they will require to succeed in both the deen and the dunya. So this is a comprehensive word where you have piety plus capability for the dunya. They're being combined together in this word, aslih. And this is from the Quran. Then when you're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, aslih li fi dhurriyati, make niyat for both. For piety, righteousness, islah, salah, and also make niyat for salahiyat, for ability, capability, for merit, for qualities which are required to succeed in the deen and dunya. And then, interestingly, the next thing, inni tubtu ilaik, that you are begging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah, I seek forgiveness for my mistakes. I'm making tawbah to you. I am making tawbah. I'm making tawbah to you. I am turning to you. I turn to you having left all my sins. Tawbah means ruju, that I'm returning back to you after leaving all my sins. Inni minal muslimin, and that I am from the one who have surrendered. I am the one to surrender. I am from the Muslims. This is my identity, that I am the one to surrender. I'm not the one to insist upon sins. I'm not the one to insist upon sins. Meaning that this dua that I'm making, it's not just words, but I'm making this dua with my heart. That with my heart, I'm turning towards you. And with my heart, I'm leaving my sins. I'm making tawbah to you. And with my heart, I'm declaring that I'm the one who will be submissive to you. I'm the one to surrender to you. I'm not the one to insist upon sins. I'm a Muslim from among the Muslims. Now, this is a very subtle connection, that when my character is rectified, when I make tawbah, when I leave my sins, when I seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when I surrender myself to Allah ta'ala, only then will this piety and this righteousness and this goodness will be sealed in the character of my child. Only then will my child also become salih. Only then will my child also become capable and able and have that merit that will become a possibility only when first I make tawbah. So means that first we need to reform yourself. Reform yourself to reform your child. We need to reform our own selves. We need to make this tawbah to Allah Ta'ala. Inni tubtu ilayka. Inni minal muslimin. We pledge ourselves to Allah Ta'ala, and then this rectification of our child will become a possibility. Our ulama, they have pointed out a very strange thing. In Surah Kahf, which we try to recite on Fridays, there is a story of Hazrat Khizr alayhi salam and Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. And Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, it's a long story, but in one place there was a wall, and there was a wealth or some treasure which was hidden beneath the wall, and that wealth belonged to orphans. And Sayyidina Khizr alayhi salam, he repaired that wall. The wall was about to collapse, and Allah Ta'ala willed for that wall to be repaired, so that when those orphans will grow up, they could easily recover their wealth. And then in the Quran, Allah Ta'ala mentions one aspect about the orphans, that their father had been a righteous man. Abu Huma Saliha. Their father was a Salih. And some scholars, they have commented and said that this was not their biological father, but a great grandfather 7 generations back. And again, if we consider this opinion, and based on some other narrations also, it shows that in our deen, there is a concept that the good deeds of parents can benefit their offsprings for 7 generations and even further. The good deeds that we do, our islah, our rectification, our tawbah, our seeking forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our surrendering to Allah ta'ala, becoming a true Muslim, this can benefit our offsprings for several generations. And on the other hand, if we are not pious, if we have character flaws, if we have weaknesses, then maybe this will transfer into the next generation as well. So the Islamic concept is that no matter how much we have sinned, if we make tawbah, inni tubutu ilayk, tawbah. If we make tawbah and if we try to leave those sins, we can start from scratch. And then that will also help our child. Allah Ta'ala will use this, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will seal goodness in our children. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put goodness and piety and righteousness and seal that in the character of our child. So, inni tubutu ilayka wa inni minal muslimin. So this is the dua, and this is a dua that we should make. We should make this our habit. We should recite this dua, make this dua regularly. Make this like a wazifa. Make this like a daily regimen, part of your daily regimen. And especially the best time to make this dua, our ulama they suggest, is that especially in your salah and within your salah, after reciting at-tahiyyat. Recite at-tahiyyat, and then you recite Durood Sharif, and then you say Rabbi ja'alni muqim as-salah, and then before you say salam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, before you say salam, that is the occasion to recite this dua. So before you say, whether this is farz salah, sunnat salah, nafil salah, right? Before you say salam, you can recite this dua, and that is one occasion. Then also when you complete your salah, after that, the duas that you make, include this dua in the list of your duas. Because in this one dua, you are getting everything. You're getting dua for yourself. You're making dua for yourself. So you are included. You're making dua for your parents. You're making dua for your offsprings. Everyone, the whole family is included here. And in this way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can make the whole family a pious family, a righteous family. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can accept the entire family for deen. The entire family can become like a shajara tayyibah. The entire family can become like a tree, like a pure shajara, like a tree, a tayyiba, a righteous, pious, pure tree with branches and flowers and fruits. Hmm? The entire family can gain acceptance in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is such a jame dua, such a comprehensive dua. So we make dua that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable all of us, that may Allah ta'ala grant all of us the tawfiq that we can make this dua. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our whole family this shajara tayyiba, this beautiful tree. May Allah ta'ala give us the tawfiq to become like that. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the tawfiq to learn this dua, to make this dua. May Allah ta'ala bless our parents and shower His rahmah and mercy upon our parents. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant piety and pour this piety and righteousness within our offsprings and generations to come. And after this, in the sequence, after this dua, the next ayah, Allah Ta'ala mentions that أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ نَتَقَبَّلُ عَنْهُمْ أَحْسَنَ مَا عَمِلُوا, that these are the ones from whom we will accept the best of what they did. And now these people who make such du'as, Allah Ta'ala talks about them and says, these are the ones whom we will accept their good deeds. We'll give kubuliyah to them. And وَنَتَجَاوَزُ عَنْ سَيِّئَاتِهِمْ فِي أَصْحَابِ الْجَنَّةِ, and these are the ones that we will overlook their mistakes. We will overlook their mistakes, and they are the ones who will be among the companions of Jannah. They are the ones who will be among the companions of Jannah. وَعْدَ الصِّدْقِ الَّذِي كَانُوا يُوعَدُونَ, and this is the promise of truth which they had been promised. Yani, in other words, that if you do this amal, if you make this dua, if you regularly make this dua, if you make this dua your habit, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that we will accept the best of amal that you do. We will overlook your mistakes. We will make you among the companions of Jannah. And this is something which Allah ta'ala is promising to you. Allahu Akbar Kabir. Right? This is the favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we make this dua and Allah ta'ala gives us so many blessings. Dua itself is so beautiful. The things that we're asking for in this dua, they themselves are so beautiful. And then if we can make this our habit of regularly making this dua, then on top of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is promising us that I will accept the good deeds that you do, and I will forgive your bad deeds, and I will overlook your misdeeds, and I will also include your names among the people of Jannat. Allahu Akbar. This is the rahmat of Allah Ta'ala, and this is the power of dua. So we make dua to Allah Ta'ala that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable all of us that we can use this dua in our life. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the tawfiq to make this dua a habit, part of our daily regimen. And may Allah Ta'ala grant all of us the barakat associated with this dua. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Subhana rabbil al-wahhab. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammadin wa barik wa sallim. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. ربي أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه وأصلح لي في ذريتي إني تبت إليك وإني من المسلمين. صلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.